Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Dandy, and today Great.com talks with Emily Paver, who works as marketing and outreach manager at the Cooperative for Education. If you don't know them yet, they are dedicated to breaking the cycle of poverty in Guatemala through education. If you're new here for this podcast, remember to subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because today we learn how education is one of the root causes of poverty in Guatemala and how to fight it. Hi, Emily, and welcome to Break.com Talks.
Hi, Danny. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm super excited to talk to you too. And I would love to begin understanding more about Guatemala. As a Brazilian, I mentioned to you before, I feel like I should know more about Guatemala, but I don't. So could you do like a quick rundown and quick introduction to the country to us?
I'd be happy to. Guatemalans oftentimes overlooked. What we hear is normally in the news and oftentimes bad. So I love to talk about the vibrant culture and demographics of Guatemala. It's a Central American country about the size of an average population around 18 million, and 40% of that 18 million are indigenous Guatemalans. And so when I say indigenous, it's definitely a very diverse culture. There are, I believe, 24 plus indigenous languages spoken, and many of those communities are direct descendants from the Mayan civilizations. And so our nonprofit is really working to bridge the gap in the education system for these indigenous communities, which are oftentimes in mountainous areas and very isolated. And so the country has an education system, but oftentimes the Guatemalan people are an invisible minority within Guatemala. And so we're trying to have these kids, succeed just like their peers.
Thank you for that. I love when you mentioned that sometimes most people get to hear about Guatemala in sad scenarios, right? In sad context, sad news. And it's super important to highlight the opposite of that, right? It's a vibrant country, and I would love to go there one day. And another thing that comes to mind here is, how did the organization begin? Because you're celebrating your 25th anniversary this year. This is a long road. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
How did it all begin?
We're thrilled to celebrate 25 years. We've accomplished a lot, but our eyes are looking forward at what do the next 25 years look like. But how we actually started back in 1996, 97, our founder and his brother were traveling to Guatemala to teach in the schools. They had worked in for-profit for many years and wanted a change of life. They wanted to give back and actually have more of a service-oriented life. And they went into some rural Guatemalan schools to assist in teaching and realized that there were no textbooks. There were zero textbooks. So how can you learn without a book, right? Especially if the teachers already are low on resources. And a lot of times teachers in Guatemala are just high school graduates. Not to put any shame to that, that is still a great accomplishment, but many of them are not educated at the collegiate level like teachers around the world are. And so paired with no textbooks, how can you raise up the next generation of readers, let alone great thinkers? And so they got a small grant to start providing textbooks to this one school, and then word of mouth spread. It spread, and people started reaching out, and they started to realize there was this huge need, and they wanted to see if they could change it, and they did. It grew from just textbooks to really wraparound services for the students and the teachers, and so much more that we're going to talk about. But I'm so thrilled that they did it because Guatemala is near and dear to my heart. I'm not from Central America, but I am from Appalachia in the United States, which deals with a lot of similar issues around education being that door out of poverty. And so that's what we're aiming to do at CoEd.
Wow, that's really remarkable work. And I'm trying to still understand how broad is the work that you're doing, because it's you have many programs, but I'd love to hear first about your approach.
Yeah.
Right? How do you work?
So we like to say it's a comprehensive approach. So we do have 4 key programs that we have found really support the student K through 12, through graduation. It is a 12-year diploma in Guatemala, and the student needs support at every level. In Guatemala, public education is no longer free after the 6th grade. And so no matter what the quality of the school, because there are both public, private, government ran, church ran, all different types of educational institutions, school isn't free for everyone, and especially for impoverished families, which majority of that 40% indigenous population is stuck in a cycle of poverty. They're dropping out at 5th or 6th grade because it's just not in the cards for them. And so literacy is really at the core of all that we do, because being able to read is the foundation of all latter learning, right? Without being able to read a book and comprehend it, you can't learn math, you can't learn science, you definitely can't go to college. And so these 4 programs, which is reading, which is teaching the teachers how to teach, and providing a rich library of children's books for the classroom in Spanish, and we're branching into more indigenous languages as well. And then textbooks for the classrooms, which I talked about. That's how we first started. We've introduced computer literacy as well. So that's our 3rd program, is computers. And then the 4th and final piece is financial support, so that those kids who can't afford to go to school, they're learning how to read, they're learning how to use a computer, but they need a scholarship to be able to stay in school and receive tutoring and go on field trips and all of those things that every kid should be able to enjoy throughout their educational career. We're trying to offer that. So the comprehensive approach really is we're coming at it at all angles, and also trying to focus on the wellness of the students too, because if anything that we've learned from the last couple of years is that there still is a mental health crisis, and developing countries are not, safe from that too, that these kids are struggling with, so many variables in their lives, not just poverty. And so ensuring that our team helps them through that really is that comprehensive approach.
Wow, I'm amazed by that, and I feel like you must have a really deep and interesting connection with the communities as well, right? It's not just getting in there and giving them the books, teaching them how to do it, and then getting away, right?
Exactly. I'm so glad you brought that up, because one thing that it was before I was on the team, but Joe, one of the founders, I mentioned the 2 sets of brothers that helped found COED. He loves to share this story of what happened after they got that first grant to provide those textbooks, right? And they did take them to the school. There's just an amazing sense of gratitude from the principal, from the teachers, of wow, thank you so much for these books. And of course they revisit them and see how things are going, and how's it going with the books. And the principal is so humbled and so thrilled, takes them to a storage room to show them these pristine books still in the plastic that have been gifted to them. And we're taking such good care of these books that you have provided to us. And so, something had to switch in our founders' brains of, okay, we didn't foresee this. What this is on us. This is not their fault. Let's talk about how to actually use the books and teach the teachers how to instruct and engage. And that's where it's gone from truly being present in the schools to learn all of those possibly foreseeable issues and help solve them. And I think we're getting there. I think in 25 years, we've learned a lot, and we're continuing to grow. So yeah, from sealed up textbooks to now being present in the schools and replacing the books in a sustainable revolving fund. That's something we can talk about too, if you're interested. But yeah, we've learned a lot.
I am very, and just before we move that to the revolving fund, I think this is vital to make anything truly work and not be dependent on the organization that brought the novelty to the place. So I'm really happy, and congratulations on that again. Now to the revolving fund. I was also interested on that. Tell our listeners about it. I'm not gonna even do an intro.
No, of course. So revolving fund is what we call it, but it's really a sustainable model to ensure that we're not just dropping off textbooks or installing a computer lab and then disappearing. We really want our programs to outlive all of us. You know, we hope to work ourselves out of a job in Guatemala, right? We really hope to continue to break the cycle of poverty for those families, especially the indigenous families. So we have to set them up for success, right? And so to use the textbooks as an example, we front the cost for the initial purchase of the textbooks, right? Which we actually buy in country to stimulate the economy, and we have a great relationship with our printer. Say the book costs $5. So we front the cost for that $5 textbook. And then over the next 5 years, the schools and in partnership with the families pay a very, very small fee to put into this fund, essentially group funding, to replace the books in 5 years. So if we've saved up $1 each year for 5 years, we've recouped that initial cost of the textbook, and it's going to replace the textbooks every 5 years. Sometimes the textbooks last longer than that, it's 5 to 7 years. And so they take great care of them, and we put covers on them to ensure that they last as long as possible, but they do need replaced. So we do that same structure with the computer program as well. So obviously technology becomes obsolete, excuse me. So we don't want to just have these dinosaur computers that these kids are learning on, and then they go into the workforce and their skills are not transferable. And so we've built this same structure, just with different scale for the computers.
Oh, that's amazing, and it's such a bright solution to that. It's important to keep things sustainable. And
yeah,
I
was going to add one other thing. We get questions a lot about, okay, why do you require the families to pay a fee? Well, it's a very small fee. I don't have the exact amount, but the families are happy to, because it's affordable compared to what they would have to pay for other things, and it increases buy-in from the community. So essentially the community is supporting their children, and there's so much more enthusiasm when it's like, oh, I had a small part in helping install this computer lab and keep it up to date. It really is a celebratory thing as opposed to a negative thing.
I can imagine that. It gives them a sense of ownership, I presume, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, it's being part of the solution. I was going to ask you about two other things that I was very interested on. That first one is the Thousand Girls Initiative. Yes. What is that about?
Yeah, so the 1,000 Girls Initiative is by a certain goal. We wanted to have 1,000 Guatemalan girls in our scholarship program, which I talked about briefly before, to graduate high school. And we are thrilled that in our 25th year, we have 1,000 girls we've had 1,000 girls in our scholarship program, and they're currently enrolled and are projected to graduate this year. So by the end of this 2022 school year, which the Guatemalan school year goes from the calendar year, not in a typical like US school year, by the end of this year, we will have had 1,000 girls in our RISE program and graduate.
That's amazing. And just for our listeners that might not be so aware of the need of this kind of initiative, in underdeveloped countries, this reality of actually the difference between boys and girls going to school is actually massive. Sometimes girls are not allowed to go to school just because they are restrained to domestic work, domestic chores. And boys, on the other hand, they are sort of incentivized to go at least to achieve some degrees. So having an initiative here that changes the focus here and say, hey, girls, you gotta do the school thing. You gotta go there and you gotta learn and you have the same rights and all of that. That actually makes a difference in the society as a whole.
You said it perfectly. Guatemala especially deals with so many girls being passed over. One, so that they can stay at home and care for their siblings, or even go and find a job to provide for the family. But also because the families just can't afford it. And so they'll sometimes choose one child to pay to go past that 6th grade drop-off point where there's a tuition required, and it's usually the oldest son, and that's, across many cultures. And so we've seen typically a 2-to-1 need for girls needing these scholarships to stay in school. And so we obviously still focus on the boys too. They're just as important, but we offer as many scholarships as we can to these young women. And we see that when a young woman is educated, the overall health of her future family is so much better. The dynamics of the family are healthier, and a lot of times we see that cycle of poverty broken forever there. And so a lot of the families that are maybe apprehensive, especially the fathers who, their culture has been this way, just like it has in many other cultures, they're also now the biggest supporters of their daughters when they see their daughters thrive and learn and educate. And yeah, I could talk about it for days and days about how amazing investing in girls' education is.
Wow, that's amazing. And maybe we can schedule that talk for later.
Yes.
Then now the second thing that I really want to ask you about is the tours to Guatemala. I saw that you offer that. I saw that on your website. And by the way, everyone can get a link to your website on the description of this episode, both on YouTube or on your podcast app. But now, tours to Guatemala, how does that work? What is that?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking about that. So, of course, we want people to see our work, right? We want them to see beautiful Guatemala. It is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. And we also want people to support us, right? So we created this trip opportunity where we do all of the logistics, all of the stuff that people hate to plan. We take care of it for you to go in person and see our programs and work. So visiting schools, meeting students, and then in your free time, you can of course go and experience Guatemala. You can see the Mayan ruins. You can go on boat trips across Lake Atitlan, which is one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. So you can go ziplining, all of the fun stuff of a vacation, but making it really mean something by spreading the word of the work that we're doing, but also connecting with our programs and maybe financially supporting them if you choose to. And of course, travel has been difficult in the last couple of years because of the pandemic. And so we paused our trips and we are thrilled to resume them this summer. So I'll actually be going in about 2 weeks on my first trip back since the pandemic has paused everything. And I cannot wait to connect with our team there because we have 2 offices. We have a US office, but we have an on-the-ground team of about 50 Guatemalan staff in Guatemala that do all of our work.
Wow. And I can imagine the emotions of going back now after so much time. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful country. The people there are some of the warmest, most giving people that I've ever met. And I mentioned that I come from an Appalachian family, which is very mountainous, isolated community. And so when I'm in Guatemala, I feel so much at home, and the people are the reason why.
Wow. Yeah, well, I can imagine that it got me really interested in going too.
You need to come with us.
But definitely have to schedule that. So in that second talk we're going to have.
Great.
About it too. And now my last question for you today is, I think, very, very important. That is, how can people help you keep going, with your efforts?
That's a great question. So I feel that the biggest way to help is to spread the word, of course. And a lot of families, a lot of individuals cannot maybe financially support. So spreading the word of the need in Guatemala, we talked about it being overlooked and like, oh, wow, I didn't realize this. Spreading the word of the amazing indigenous people in Guatemala that are oftentimes only linked to the bad news, with immigration or with drug and gang violence that is still very much present in their country. But they're amazing people and they just need opportunities. And if we can help provide that financially or through some type of physical collaboration, spreading the word about that. And if you can support and you're apprehensive, come to Guatemala with us. When you come on a trip with us, you really see the work being done and the amazing people doing it. And I'm quite a skeptic of nonprofits. I work in the nonprofit sector, and I'm very, very focused on vetting the places that I financially support, right? And I'm thrilled to say that, the money that you're giving is going directly to these people as opposed to someone else. And so financially supporting, going on a trip with us, but maybe you want to sponsor a student in a one-to-one relationship, which we offer. And so you can actually go on our website, see the students available, read about them, and financially support them, which is life-changing for them, but it might be for you too. And I can say that I think it would be.
Wow, that's wonderful. And people do go there. The website is co or educ. I don't
Yeah,
know how to say
Coeduc,
that.
yeah.
Educ. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
educ.org. And you can get all the information there. It's super easy to donate. You can see information about the impacts they have made. They have their program map, which is super incredible. Go there if you want to see how far they've gone in the Guatemalan territory. It's incredible, and you can get involved through that. And Emily, thank you so much. I loved talking to you today. It was a great talk. I loved it.
Thank you so much, Danny. It was an honor, and I need to get over to Brazil to see where you're from, and maybe you can come over to Guatemala with us and have some coffee and talk about the great work that we're doing and all the great work that you're doing. I think that word is obviously great for this podcast because there's a lot of amazing people doing great work. So I'm thrilled to talk about our little corner of the world in Guatemala with you.
Oh, thank you so much. And I would love both things. You can come and I can go.
Perfect. Great. Especially now that we can travel again.
Right?
Fingers crossed.
It's going to work out.
Yes.
And for everybody listening also, thank you so very much because you're here with us one more time. And if you enjoyed this episode, remember to press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that shows the algorithm that this is an important conversation and more people can learn about the importance of the cooperative for education. Bye and see you at the next episode.